So Robin was complaining that her hair did not look good for the internet, and she felt that she looked like Crispin Glover, which when it was slicked to the side, I was seeing kind of a Christian Bale for a second.
No way. I would love to look like Christian Bale. All right, we'll just do that. Oh, there it goes.
I empathize because I have the cowlicks right here and here that go opposite directions, so I just end up with little horns.
I've just got the one. I tried cutting my bangs in middle school, like as is traditional, and I pulled it down and I cut it, and it went, which
Yep.
since it was the 90s was great. That was what everyone was going for, but I hated it. Yes.
Yes.
Do we have any news? My Star Wars abstract art piece is going well.
Lovely.
Yeah, I can probably show you. Do. Probably smarter to just turn the thing around, but so I bought this thing that's a bunch of mirrors with candle holders. And we've got a lot of little ships that are going to go on the candle holders, but these are fucking ugly. So instead of that, I'm building these little panels.
I like.
Right?
That's cool.
And it's fun. It's so much fun. Oh, sorry for the awkwardness of the angle.
Gasp. Are y'all watching Andor? I've been hearing it's really good.
Jason's enjoying it. I watched the first couple episodes and went, this is too... It's political intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
Political intrigue gives me ulcers. I can't handle it in my fiction. I prefer swashbuckling and stuff that isn't long conversations about fucking people over. That just
Fair.
It reminds me of, what else did he watch that I said I can't be watching this because it's stressful for me. The Expanse. It's got that flavor.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do The Expanse either.
Yeah. No. It's less to that extent, so you might still enjoy Andor. I might do this with my hair periodically, like
I was watching back after last week. I was watching back a couple of old episodes, which was enlightening and things. And one of the things I noticed was how often I touch my hair.
I went back to the very first one just yesterday because I was farting around on the internet and noticed that your hair was adorable. That faux hawk you had. I'm like, maybe I should have a faux hawk.
Well, the faux hawk is not coming back anytime soon.
Too hard to maintain?
No, it's not that hard to maintain, but it has a sort of traumatic association now.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's just I don't like looking exactly the way I looked throughout the pandemic. I'm like, I need a different. My face ain't changing. Something else has to change.
We have been watching. So we picked a random show on Netflix, and we have good luck usually with animes. So we watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
Okay.
And it's good. It's really quite good. It has a couple of filler episodes, and it does not end in a way that leaves it open for any further storytelling, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the main characters, there you go. See, all I needed was a couple of barrettes. One of the main characters is so much fun. I'm like, maybe I need to cosplay her. Where do I get contact lenses like that?
Probably on the internet, depending on what they are.
Yeah, they're... If you want to watch something that's tons of fun but ultimately tragic, go ahead and watch it. It was worth the stab at the end.
I'll pass. I don't want to watch anything tragic right now.
Right, and it's tragic like House of Flying Daggers is tragic, where if you just rewrite the last 5 minutes of the final episode in your head, which I've already done, it's a little more open-ended and less... The other thing is the last episode is super rushed. It goes from we're building and building and building and done.
Ah, the studio canceled us. We thought we'd have another season to wrap this up thing.
Yeah, it definitely has that style of thing, and yeah. So I've got a headcanon. It hurts nobody for me to be at odds with the universe and how fictional people
Head
die.
Headcanons are entirely safe for all ages. They have no side effects other than reduced sadness. Or sometimes increased sadness if that's what you're into. All right, I'm going to turn on my living room light. I turned it off because it was super bright, but now it's very dark.
Yeah, you're
God,
looking.
win!
Oh, I've lapped us again.
Yeah, you do that.
Yeah. Let's see. Where the hell are we then? Houses of Healing. Amer was silent. King Dream. Last debate.
We're talking about the diversion, so we were in the last debate.
Okay. I guess I could have gone into the last episode and seen where we were at.
Oh, also, I will be working on a thing, but it is a secret thing, so I'm just going to keep the camera on my face.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's not that secret.
Right?
Jason asked for it,
I have no idea.
We
Hang on, you get set up and talk to yourself for a minute because I think I still have the window open.
Okay. All right. I am getting set up.
Oh wait, 6 minutes ago.
Window open. Sorting out all of my things. Oh, I'm going to need to open up another tab for my pattern.
And makeup and stuff, they all look...
Reckon with those who fought on this field, said Aragorn. New strength is on the way from the southern fiefs, now that the coasts have been rid. I'm going to mute you. Because I can hear myself talking and it's weird. I mean, now I can't hear you. You may have to unmute yourself when you find our place. Oh, if I muted you, I suppose I should say stuff. So I am doing a cross stitch, and this is thread. You can't really see it, but it is. And I got this nice little, I think I can show without spoilers, although again, spoilers don't really matter. I got this nice little scroll frame for it. And you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself, or do I have to unmute you?
I don't know how to mute you when I'm trying to... So I had two of your voices going at the same time.
Oh, so I shouldn't have been talking. Oops.
I thought somehow that it wouldn't be a thing, but it is totally a thing.
Yeah.
All right, hang on. All right, I'll mute myself, and you just mime. Good job. The gate is destroyed, blah, blah, blah. Gimli will ask Rights of the Mountain to come build us a gate, etc. This then was the end of the debate of the lords, that they should set forth on the second morning from that day with 7,000, if these might be found, and the great part of this force should be on foot because of the evil lands into which they would go. Aragorn should find some 2,000 of those that he had gathered to him in the south, but Imrahil should find 3,500, and Eomer 500 of the Rohirrim, who were unhorsed but themselves war-worthy, and he himself should lead 500 of his best riders on horse. Total tangent, but it's something I've been meaning to mention to you because I need to bitch to someone. The
Yes.
algorithms that decide what reels are shown to you in your various social medias are so incredibly precisely the what you focus on increases that it's fucking terrifying.
I mean, that's how they're written.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a fair illustration, but it also means that you can't just be curious and click on a thing, because then you'll be shown 140 Britney Spears videos or whatever. It's just that's what will happen until it goes away, until you literally stop watching, and then it will go away. I made the mistake of watching a farrier do something to a horse hoof, and now really grossening horse hoof things are in my reels.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It
I
is.
get around that by not
The
watching.
horses and the evil lands, and I'm like, yes, no, don't take them into the lands where these bad things can happen to the feet. Ah!
The agony of defeats. I get around that by not watching reels, but I did notice. So right before Halloween, I watched the Backstreet's Back video because it's very Halloweeny and and hilarious. And then it was like, oh, you must want to watch early 2000s pop music, and I was like, no, I wanted to watch a man breakdance in a werewolf costume. If you've got more of that, I'll take it.
Come on. Yeah, that's the sad part, is that you don't get to decide what of what you're looking at is the part that is interesting, apparently.
Right. They're like, yes. Yeah, I get what have I been getting? Oh, lots of YouTube videos about Taskmaster. I swear I have never clicked on one. I don't know why they think I want to watch stuff about Taskmaster.
I don't know. Maybe it's because they hear you.
But I don't talk about Taskmaster.
You just said it 4 times. My puck heard you.
Well, that's a you problem. I don't have a narc in my house. I mean, other than my cat. Cat's probably spying for the algorithm. That's probably what it is.
That's totally what's happening. And she's like, oh God, there's such an inhuman Taskmaster. And the algorithm's like, ooh.
I don't feel like my cat knows that many polysyllabic words, to be honest.
My cat, our cat, this morning, I go into the dining room and he's on the table licking the maple syrup off of Abby's pancake plate. Like, you're 7 fucking years old. You know better. You're like, syrup.
I mean, do cats ever really know better, though?
Apparently not. Like, maybe that was his midlife crisis.
It's a pretty good midlife crisis when you think about it. Like, yeah. Yes, I will just become involved and heavily interested in maple syrup. It's a Canadian midlife crisis.
And in the 2000s, it began the defense of the city, and she had 3,500 500s. And another company of 500 horse there should be, among which should ride the sons of Elrond with the Dunedain and the knights of Dol Amroth. All told 6,000 foot and 1,000 horse. But the main strength of the Rohirrim that remained horsed and able to fight, some 3,000 under the command of Elfhelm, should waylay the west road. See, Elfhelm knows how to be the guy that shows up late to the party and doesn't make a nuisance of himself.
Yeah, Imrahil could take a lesson there.
Totally. And Elfhelm was the guy who was leading the Aered that allowed Dernhelm to join. So, yeah.
Yes, we are Team Elfhelm here in this house.
Yeah, absolutely. Should waylay the west road against the enemy that was in Anorion. And at once swift riders were sent out to gather what news they could northwards and eastwards from Osgiliath and the road to Minas Morgul. And when they had reckoned up all their strength and taken thought for the journeys they should make and the roads they should choose, Imrahil suddenly laughed aloud. "Surely," he cried, "this is the greatest jest in all the history of Gondor, that we should ride with 7,000, scarce as many as the vanguard of its army in the days of its power, to assail the mountains and the impenetrable gate of the Black Land." Actually, I totally dig what he's saying right here. "So might a child threaten a mail-clad knight with a bow of string and green willow. If the Dark Lord knows so much as you say, Mithrandir, will he not rather smile than fear, and with his little finger crush us like a fly that tries to sting him? No, he will try to trap the fly and take the sting," said Gandalf. "And there are names among us that are worth more than 1,000 mail-clad knights apiece. No."
I keep hearing that as MALE clad, and I'm like, wait, what?
Well, see, it rained men, and then they had to do something with it.
Hallelujah.
"No, he will not smile." "Neither shall we," said Aragorn. "If this be jest, then it is too bitter for laughter. Oh, shut up, you. Nay, it is the last move in a great jeopardy, and for one side or the other it will bring the end of the game." Then,
Do, 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 do. Look, I'm
then,
not the one who said Jeopardy.
then he drew Anduril and held it up glittering in the sun. "You shall not be sheathed again until the last battle is fought," he said.
So he's just walking around with an unsheathed sword for
Yeah,
like 5 days. That is not safe.
it's like 2 weeks. It takes them a while to get there.
That's right. He obviously did not listen
He
to Billy, what's his face, in Muppet Treasure Island. It's all good fun until somebody loses an
Bones, Billy Bones.
Thank you.
Also Connolly.
That was what I was actually trying to think of, yes. My brain said Boyd, and I was like, no.
Nope, wrong Billy.
No.
I mean, he's always the right Billy, but
but he was not in Muppet Treasure Island.
that's a shame.
Yeah.
All right, chapter 10, The Black Gate Opens. 2 days later, the army of the West was all assembled on the Pelennor. Aragorn had his sword out, and people were like, "Why?" And he's like, "Shut up."
And then Aragorn tripped and stabbed himself through the head like that dude in Our Flag Means Death. And everyone was like, awkward.
The host of orcs and Easterlings had turned back out of Anorion, but harried and scattered by the Rohirrim, they had broken and fled with little fighting towards Cair Andros. And with that threat destroyed and new strength arriving out of the south, the city was as well manned as might be. Scouts reported that no enemies remained upon the roads east, as far as the crossroads of the fallen king. All now was ready for the last throw. Legolas and Gimli were to ride again together in the company of Aragorn and Gandalf, who went in the van with the Dunedain and the sons of Elrond. Vroom.
I hope they have something cool airbrushed on the van.
Mordor or bust. But Merry, to his shame, was not to go with them. "You are not fit for such a journey," said Aragorn, "but do not be ashamed. If you do no more in this war, you have already earned great honor. Peregrine shall go and represent the Shire folk, and do not grudge him his chance of peril, for though he has done as well as his fortune allowed him, he has yet to match your deed. But in truth all now are in like danger, though it may be our part to find a bitter end before the gate of Mordor. If we do so, then you will come also to a last stand, either here or wherever the black tide overtakes you. Farewell." Everyone in this book sucks at it at morale boosting.
Don't worry, you'll have a terrible death here. You don't have to come with us to get that.
Like, if you end up fighting for your life, just know that we died horribly first.
Yeah, comfort yourself with the thought that your friend is already dead in a terrible manner. Right. And you never got to see him again. Okay, bye!
It does border on parody. And so, despondently, Mary now stood and watched the mustering of the army. Burgill was with him, and he also was downcast, for his father was to march leading a company of the men of the city. He could not rejoin the guard until his case was judged. In that same company Pippin was also to go as a soldier of Gondor. Mary could see him not far off, a small but upright figure among the tall men of Minas Tirith.
Talk about the fact that they still are like halfway through a legal case in the middle of a war.
Yeah. And also, what interests me about that sentence was the fact that they're standing apparently at the houses of healing, right? I guess he doesn't say, so I can't lay that on him.
I was going to say, I don't think it specifies. Why? What were you thinking?
Because if he's in the houses of healing, he's 600 feet above the plane. He can't see fucking Pippin.
No, they must be like at the gate or something.
Yeah, that works. That works. They're standing on the wall.
Yeah.
Parapet. At last the trumpets rang and the army began to move. Troop by troop and company by company they wheeled and went off eastward. And long after they had passed away out of sight down the great road to the causeway, Mary stood there, wherever there is. The last glint of the morning sun on spear and helm twinkled and was lost, and still he remained with bowed head and heavy heart, feeling friendless and alone. Everyone that he cared for had gone away into the gloom that hung over the distant eastern sky, and little hope at all was left in his heart that he would ever see any of them again. As if recalled by his mood of despair, the pain in his arm returned, and he felt weak and old, and the sunlight seemed thin. He was roused by the touch of Burgill's hand. "Come, Master Perian," said the lad. "You are still in pain, I see. I will help you back to the healers. But do not fear. They will come back. The men of Minas Tirith will never be overcome. And now they have the Lord Elfstone, and Beregond of the Guard, too." Can we just take a moment and talk about how touching it is that Burgill thinks his dad is that awesome?
It is pretty touching.
It's so cute.
Although I'm still hung up on the fact that everybody's calling him Elfstone, which is basically like, Mr. Pebble.
It's worse when you know that the Elfstones are barrels, so they're calling him Beryl. Oh, Beryl.
Beryl.
Beryl, yes. I am Beryl Telkantar. Shall we have tea?
But aside from that, yes, it's very sweet that Burgill's like, nah, my dad's going, so they're definitely going to come back.
You're totally fine. They've got the king and my dad. Ere noon, the army came to Osgiliath. There all the workers and craftsmen that could be spared were busy. Some were strengthening the ferries and boat bridges that the enemy had made and in part destroyed when they fled. Some gathered stores and booty, and others on the
Look, an army marches on its booty, okay?
and others on the eastern side across the river were throwing up hasty works of defense. The vanguard passed on through the ruins of old Gondor and over the wide river and on up the long straight road that in the high days had been made to run from the fair Tower of the Sun to the tall Tower of the Moon, which now was Minas Morgul and its accursed vale, lest you forgot. Sorry I keep sniffing. If we ever go through and edit these, I'm totally going to take out all the sniffings.
I had thought about going through and editing them. I feel like that could be a thing at some point.
Right? Just pare them down to the book and the bits about the book.
Yeah, well, pare them down to the funny bits.
Yeah.
And probably take out some of our nattering. Not as much as I personally enjoy the nattering.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a project for another day. We've got this much book left to read, and then we'll see. It hadn't occurred to me that we would reach the end of the book, and I don't know if we want to read a different book or what. Like, we're going to have a lot of stock taking to do.
We are.
We could read the Silmarillion.
We'll talk about it later.
Throwing up hasty works of defense, which was now Minas Morgul in its accursed vale, 5 miles beyond Osgiliath. They halted, ending their first day's march. But the horsemen pressed on, and ere evening they came to the crossroads, and the great ring of trees, and all was silent. No sign of any enemy had they seen, no cry or call had been heard, no shaft had sped from rock or thicket by the way, yet ever as they went forward they felt the watchfulness of the land increase. Tree and stone, blade and leaf were listening. The darkness had been dispelled, and far away westward sunset was on the vale of Anduin, and the white peaks of the mountains blushed in the blue air, but a shadow and a gloom brooded upon the Epel Duath. Then Aragorn set trumpeters at each of the 4 roads that ran into the ring of trees, and they blew a great fanfare, and the heralds cried aloud, "The lords of Gondor have returned, and all this land that is theirs they take back." The hideous
flag.
The hideous orc head that was set upon the carven figure was cast down and broken in pieces, and the old king's head was raised and set in its place once more, still crowned with white and golden flowers. And men labored to wash and pare away all the foul scrawls that orcs had put upon the stone. That's what I joined the army for, to clean graffiti.
Honestly, that seems like a pretty likely thing to do in the army. Like, that checks out.
Yeah. And I love the attention to detail. Like, they're not going to leave that there.
Nah.
That's not how we roll.
That is in no way how we roll.
Yeah. And they pick up the king's head and they're like, "There's flowers. Should we pull them off?" No, the flowers look great. Leave the flowers.
I quite like the flowers, actually.
Yes. Right? Now, in their debate, some had counselled that Minas Morgul should first be assailed, and if they might take it, it should be utterly destroyed. And maybe, said Imrahil, because all of his ideas are bad, the road that leads thence to the pass above will prove an easier way of assault upon the Dark Lord than his northern gate.
Nope.
Do you forget what we're doing here, you fuck? But in Tolkienese, it's, "But against this Gandalf had spoken urgently." We can assume that he used the words "you fuck."
I mean, that is something that I could easily picture Gandalf saying to us.
Be a bitch. Because of the evil that dwelt in the valley, where the minds of living men would turn to madness and horror, and because also of the news that Faramir had brought. For if the ring-bearer had indeed attempted that way, then above all they should not draw the eye of Mordor thither.
Thank God someone's thinking.
So the next day, when the main host came up, they set a strong guard upon the crossroads to make some defense, if Mordor should send a force over the Morgul Pass, or should bring more men up from the south. For that guard they chose mostly archers who knew the ways of Ithilien, and would lie hid in the woods and slopes about the meeting of the ways. But Gandalf and Aragorn rode with the vanguard to the entrance of Morgul Vale, and looked on the evil city. It was dark and lifeless, for the orcs and lesser creatures of Mordor that had dwelt there had been destroyed in battle, and the Nazgul were abroad, all 8 of them. Yet the air of the valley was heavy with fear and enmity. Fear and enmity. Excuse me. That wasn't a cheerful sentence. I was just... Yet the air of the valley was heavy with fear and enmity. Then they broke the evil bridge and set red flames in the noisome fields and departed. Quinn?
Yes?
They broke the bridge. Did they have a really big lever? Or did they reproduce the fire of Orthanc? Did they make gunpowder? Do our good guys have gunpowder? Or did Gandalf stand in the middle of the bridge and whomp it with his staff like he did in Khazad-dûm? How did they break the bridge?
They got 6 really tall guys underneath it and then had them stand up at the same time.
And then said goodbye to them because that river is toxic.
They got 6 really tall, really expendable guys. I don't know.
I need, if there's ever an audience, leave a comment. I need to know how they broke the bridge, because they could not retrofit. What do you call that? Recreate, reverse engineer. They could have reverse engineered gunpowder.
Yeah, but when have they had the time?
And why don't they use that in any other application?
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't make any sense.
Haunt me. Like, how? You shall not pass this way because I'm breaking this. I mean, setting fire to the fields of poisonous flowers, that was dumb, but it's a good image. But like, just don't breathe the fumes, I guess.
Maybe they didn't actually break the bridge, but they set fire to the flowers, breathed the fumes, got really high, and thought they broke the bridge.
Yeah. Maybe they. That's the best I've got.
That's the second best I've got. The best I've got is that I just rewatched Boondock Saints, so maybe it was a fucking huge guy.
Fucking huge.
The bridge got serial crushed by some huge fucking guy.
Oh, excellent choice. That shit's classic.
It holds up pretty well. I did have to stop at one point and like take a breather from the violence. I'm not as used to that as I was when I was younger, but
the Edge Runners that we watched had the kind of violence that you only get in anime, where people are apparently delicate sacks filled with red liquid. Where it's so bad, yeah. Or you throw someone up against the wall and they go splash, and you're like, I can't even be traumatized by this because it's so over the top.
Oh man, yeah, no, that's not very traumatizing. I was a bit another one that I had to stop watching, and I actually did like fully stop, was Castlevania, just because of
that one. It was
so.
You got to
it was
see
a lot.
Too much of the pain, and it wasn't quite, yeah.
Well, like I had it recommended to me by a coworker who did not mention that there were going to be scenes where the battlements were literally garlanded with fucking whatchamacallit,
entrails. Yeah, that's a lot.
I can't do it, man.
And I can only watch Hellsing abridged, because we did watch the whole thing once, and we were like, we would prefer just, if the streets of London are going to be literally flowing with blood, then I need it to just be, I need the reaction shot to it to just be, ugh. And then moving on.
Oh, I might go rewatch Hellsing Ultimate Abridged after this, actually.
And I will. I hope there's some canon way that they broke the bridge. It bothers me. I want to picture it right, and right now it's just like they stab it. They point to it and it goes. That's after they're high on the flower fumes. The day after, being the third day since they set out from Minas Tirith, the army began its northward march along the road. It was some 100 miles by that way from the crossroads to the Morannon, and what might befall them before they came so far, none knew. They went openly but heedfully, with mounted scouts before them on the road and others on foot upon either side, especially on the eastward flank. For there lay dark thickets and a tumbled land of rocky gills and crags, behind which the long grim slopes of the Evilduath clambered up. The weather of the world remained fair, and the wind held in the west, but nothing could waft away the glooms and the sad mists that clung about the mountains of shadow. And behind them at whiles the great smokes would arise and hover in the upper winds. Ever and anon, Gandalf let blow the trumpets, and the heralds would cry, "The lords of Gondor are come. Let all leave this land or yield them up." But Imrahil said, "Say not the lords of Gondor, say the King Elisar, for that is true, even though he has not yet sat upon the throne, and it will give the enemy more thought if the heralds use that name." They're like, "Wow, first good idea you've had."
I was gonna say.
You're still no Elfhelm.
I was actually about to be like, Imrahil, you stupid bitch. And then I was like, no, wait, that's actually a good idea.
That's a good idea. Like, shut up, Imrahil. And thereafter, thrice a day, the heralds proclaimed the coming of the King Elisar, but none answered the challenge. Nonetheless, though they marched in seeming peace, the hearts of all the army, from the highest to the lowest, were downcast. Well, you are on a suicide mission. I mean, I'll give you that.
That is a pretty good reason to be downcast at heart, all things considered.
And with every mile that they went north, foreboding of evil grew heavier on them. It was near the end of the second day of their march from the crossroads that they first met any offer of battle. For a strong force of orcs and Easterlings...
Hey, you guys want some battle? Sorry.
Hungry? For a strong force of orcs and Easterlings attempted to take their leading companies in an ambush, and that was in the very place where Faramir had waylaid the men of Harad, and the road went in a deep cutting through an outthrust of the deep eastward hills. But the captains of the west were well warned by their scouts, skilled men from Henneth Anun, led by Mablung. He's still alive, folks. Mablung! Now, was Mablung the one who was 2 days from retirement, or was Mablung the one with a young wife and child at home?
I think Mablung was 2 days from retirement, and this was his supposed to be his last assignment.
Yeah. And so the ambush was itself trapped, for horsemen went wide about westwards and came up on the flank of the enemy from behind, and they were destroyed or driven east into the hills. But the victory did little to enhearten the captains. "It is but a feint," said Aragorn, "and its chief purpose, I deem, was rather to draw us on by a false guess of our enemy's weakness than to do us much hurt, yet." And from that evening onward the Nazgul came and followed every move of the army. They still flew high and out of sight of all save Legolas, and yet their presence could be felt, as a deepening of shadow and a dimming of the sun. And though the ring-wraiths did not yet stoop low upon their foes, and were silent, uttering no cry, the dread of them could not be shaken off. So time and the hopeless...
I just... the ring-wraith's gonna wraith. I just gotta shake. Shake off the dread. Oh, no, I can't. I don't know. It needs a little work, but we got something.
This is, yeah. The attack is but a feint. So time and the hopeless journey wore away. Upon the 4th day from the crossroads, and the 6th from Minas Tirith, they came at last to the end of the living lands, and began to pass into the desolation that lay before the gates of the pass of Cirith Gorgor, and they could descry the marshes and the desert that stretched north and west to the Emyn. So desolate were those places, and so deep the horror that lay on them, that some of the host were unmanned, and they could neither walk nor ride further north.
They were no longer mail-clad. They were unmanned.
They were unmanned. Their cladding is gone. Aragorn looked at them, and there was pity in his eyes rather than wrath. For these were young men from Rohan, from Westfold far away, or husbandmen from Lossarnach, and to them Mordor had been from childhood a name of evil and yet unreal, a legend that had no part in their simple life. I bet you their nanas were like, I'm going to send you to Mordor if you don't eat your peas.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. If you don't brush your teeth, Sauron will get you. Like, why am I going to hell? Why is this real? Oh, God. And now they walked like men in a hideous dream made true, and they understood not this war, nor why fate should lead them to such a pass. Go.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Doing. Oh, that would totally be me. What am I doing here? This is not my beautiful house.
This is really not my beautiful house.
Go, said Aragorn, but keep what honor you may, and do not run, nor wet yourself. And there is a task which you may attempt, and so be not wholly shamed. Take your way southwest till you come to Carandros, and if that is still held by enemies, as I think, then retake it, if you can, and hold it to the last in defence of Gondor and Rohan. Then some, being shamed by his mercy, overcame their fear and went on, and the others took new hope, hearing of a manful deed within their measure that they could turn to, and they departed. So, since many men had already been left at the crossroads, it was with less than 6,000. It was with less than 6,000 that the captains of the West came at last to challenge the Black Gate and the might of Mordor. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. That's actually really good leadership, though. If someone has something that they're trying to do but they can't reasonably achieve it, you give them something else that they
Right?
can do and feel good about.
Because they're not afraid of fighting. They just never thought they'd be here.
Yeah, and it's like incredibly scary, horrible place to be that they never had any reason to like mentally prepare for.
Nope.
Versus the Dunedain being like, yeah, this seems about right.
Right. Like they've been preparing for this for thousands of years. Like, why would is it thousands? Damned if I know. We'll find out if we read Silmarillion.
Oh God.
They advanced now slowly, expecting at every hour some answer to their challenge, and they drew together, since it was but waste of men to send out scouts or small parties from the main host. We hate but waste. At nightfall of the 5th day of the march from Morgul Vale, they made their last camp, and set fires about it of such dead wood and heath as they could find. They passed the hours of night in wakefulness, and they were aware of many things half seen that walked and prowled all about them. They heard the howling of wolves. The wind had died, and all the air seemed still. They could see little, for though it was cloudless, and the waxing moon was 4 nights old, there were smokes and fumes that rose out of the earth, and the white crescent was shrouded in the mists of Mordor. I love how the worst place he can picture is an industrial dump.
Well, yeah, and he's right.
He's not wrong, but it's very universal, like universally applicable. Like there's nothing in nature as gross as a place where industry has been and dumped its heavy metals and toxic waste.
Yeah. Checks out.
Yeah. If plastic had been widespread, like if he was writing this now, you know that Mordor would be a place that uses plastic, and that the Dagorlad would be like just covered in
stuff in plastic stuff.
Flip-flops and water bottles. Sorry, I just have to because it's a ginger cookie.
I see no reason you should ever need to apologize for eating a cookie. I think that is always a good decision.
Thank you. But I know my chewing is loud, and I didn't mute myself, so that's what I'm apologizing for.
I didn't hear it.
It grew cold. As morning came, the wind began to stir again, but now it came from the north, and soon it freshened to a rising breeze. All the night walkers were gone, and the land seemed empty. North, amid their noisome pits, lay the first of the great heaps and hills of slag and broken rock and blasted earth, the vomit of the maggot folk of Mordor. But south and now near loomed the great rampart of Cirith Gorgor and the black gate amidmost, and the two towers of the Teeth, tall and dark upon either side. For in their last march, the captains had turned away from the old road as it bent east, and avoided the peril of the lurking hills, so now they were approaching the Morannon from the northwest, even as Frodo had done. The two vast iron doors of the black gate under its frowning arch were fast closed. Upon the battlement nothing could be seen. Do you know the story about the two vast iron doors and why they got that right in the movie? They accidentally got it right in the movie.
Oh yeah, I vaguely recall this from the
Yeah.
thingamabob.
Because the writers were picturing a single gate, because it's described as a single gate everywhere but here, where it says the two doors of the single gate, but someone mistyped it as gates. So that's what the designers went with, and nobody argued, and it's like 3 right turns make a left.
I consistently have trouble remembering that, but that's a spatial reasoning issue. That doesn't have anything to do with Tolkien.
Sometimes I wonder if Pratchett's running joke about 3 right angles making a triangle are, part of it is let's make fun of people who don't understand geometry, but 3 right angles can make a triangle if you're drawing the triangle on a sphere.
I do not understand geometry well enough to follow that.
If take a sphere and cut it in quarters and then cut it one more time so that it's eighths, and each of those pieces will look triangular and they'll have straight lines from a certain point of view, and each of its corners will be a right angle. And yeah, I don't know if it's a geometry joke or if it's a deep geometry joke or a shallow geometry joke.
You might as well keep reading. I'm not going to figure this out anytime soon. Geometry was the worst subject I ever studied. The subject I was worst at is what I mean.
I loved it so much. The two vast iron doors of the black blah blah blah. They were come to the last end of their... Oh, wait, no. I skipped a sentence. Under its frowning arch were fast closed. Upon the battlement nothing could be seen. All was silent but watchful. They were come to the last end of their folly, and stood forlorn and chill in the grey light of early day before towers and walls which their army could not assault with hope, not even if it had brought thither engines of great power, and the enemy had no more force than would suffice for the manning of the gate and wall alone. Yet they knew that all the hills and rocks about the Morannon were filled with hidden foes, and the shadowy defile beyond was bored and tunneled by teeming broods of evil things. And as they stood there, they saw that all the Nazgul... And as they stood, they saw all the Nazgul gathered together, hovering above the towers of the Teeth like vultures. And they knew that they were watched. But still the enemy made no sign. No choice was left them but to play their part to its end. Therefore Aragorn now set the host in such array as could best be contrived, and they were drawn up on 2 great hills of blasted stone and earth that orcs had piled in years of labour. Before them, towards Mordor, lay like a moat a great mire of reeking mud and foul-smelling pools. Yea, I traversed that sentence.
It was a lot like traversing what was being described.
Yeah. It's almost like onomatopoeia, like he's only going to use words that are like the thing that is in the description. It's yeah.
Mhm.
This is why there's only one Tolkien. When all was ordered, the captains rode forth towards the Black Gate with a great guard of horsemen and the banner and heralds and trumpeters. There was Gandalf as chief herald, and Aragorn with the sons of Elrond, and Eomer of Rohan and Imrahil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Legolas and Gimli and Peregrine were bidden to go also, so that all the enemies of Mordor should have a witness. They came within cry of the Morannon, and unfurled the banner, and blew upon their trumpets, and all the heralds stood out and sent their voices up over the battlement of Mordor. Come forth, they cried. Let the Lord of the Black Land come forth. Justice shall be done upon him, for wrongfully he has made war upon Gondor and wrested its lands. Therefore the king of Gondor demands that he should atone for his evils and depart then forever. Come forth! And they all said it in unison, which means that all the way here they were
They've been
rehearsing.
practicing. Could you imagine being the one herald that forgot your lines and like said something backwards?
Sorry,
God
guys. Sorry.
damn it, Jeff, you had one job.
Like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I hope the ground opens up and swallows me.
Oh, that's a deep cut right there.
There was a long silence, and from wall and gate no cry or sound was heard in answer. But Sauron had already laid his plans, and he had a mind first to play these mice cruelly before he struck to kill. So it
Mm-hmm.
was that even as the captains were about to turn away, the silence was broken suddenly. There came a long rolling of great drums like thunder in the mountains, and then a braying of horns that shook the very stones and stunned men's ears. And thereupon the door of the Black Gate was thrown open with a great clang, and out of it there came an embassy from the Dark Tower. And we're gonna leave it there because it's almost 8.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably shouldn't dwell on the breaking of the bridge. It occurred to me this last time I read it. I was like, how though?
Look, I'm going with my 6 tall expendable guys theory. I have decided that's the one. I'm sticking with it.
I think I might go with Gandalf has already demonstrated his wizardly abilities to break bridges, and he did it again. He just went up and went flomp with his staff, and it went crumble. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, that
You're
makes more
there.
sense than my theory.
Light those toxic flowers on fire, will ya?
Oh, God, I need some pipe weed, but we don't have any. Light up those flowers. Let's see what they do.
Oh. The National Park Service has requested that people stop trying to lick the Sonoran Desert toads, and I'm like, oh, you fucking morons.
First
Like,
of all, they shouldn't do that for many reasons, but mostly rude. How would
yeah,
you like it if someone walked into your house and tried to lick you?
lick you. It's yeah, no, I have read the things. I've read enough to know that that's not a high that you seek out anywhere where you're not completely safe and with someone you trust and also far away from anything that could kill you.
Look, I don't know. People try to get high off of Benadryl, and it's not even a fun high from what I hear.
No.
Or no, not Benadryl. Maybe Benadryl also, but I was thinking of Robitussin.
Yeah, they've fucked with the formula. Robitussin doesn't do shit anymore. Dramamine is not much of a trip either.
Mm.
Although I wrote some pretty good poetry.
Well, also you were so not motion sick.
I
You could have been
already
on
was.
a
I've always been
Thorl.
motion sick. I am the world's worst motion sickness person when it comes
That is
to.
not at all true. I get worse motion sickness than you, and I know because you're the one that used to read in the car when we were kids.
I can't do it anymore.
Well, I
Not even
sympathize, but
close.
I
I
never
can't even. I
could.
can't even look at my phone in the car anymore. Not
Yeah,
even
I
read a
get.
text. It makes me go queasy. So probably because I took 50 Dramamine once and my body never reacted or never recovered.
I mean, that could very well be. I'm just saying, I never could do any of those things. That's why I liked to drive, because I don't get sick when driving.
That is a good reason to drive. I wish I'd ever gotten around to it. But yes. Yeah, but that's my point. I took 50 Dramamine once, and even I wouldn't lick a Sonoran Desert Toad. Like, I crazy, and I wouldn't do that.
That it is a very bad idea. Also, that was like 20 years ago. You wouldn't take 50 Dramamine now
Like
either.
22. No. 22. Anything pre-time. My child time, not the concept or the herb.
On a completely different note, your shawl is very pretty. I like it.
Thank you. It was a birthday gift from Jessica. So apparently she had a choice between this one and one that was a lot more like wild and whimsical. And I'm like, I love the blues. I love the shawlness. I love the grace of it, but I kind of wish I could have seen the wild whimsy one too.
Well, we're talking about fashion. I just need to brag and say that I made this shirt. I tie-dyed it.
It's awesome.
I think it turned out nice.
Yeah, I did too. I have a Redbubble shop.
Lovely.
Yes, it has stuff. It has. I just. Fuck it. I'll show you later, because it's time to leave.
It is time to go and do other things. And I don't know what this hand gesture is.
It's foreshortening. Thank you for reading with me, and I'm glad we've finally made it as far as the Black Gate, because they took their time.
Yes, it was all their fault.
They're getting high on flowers.
Yeah, you and we've not done anything to extend this whole thing. It's all because the characters are moving slowly.
Yeah. And discussing their movements at length before even moving. So yeah, it's all them.
Mm-hmm.
We are merely chroniclers.
Indeed. All right, I will see you next week.
Excellent. Cuidado.
Namas.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you too.